Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our second part of the lecture on cell structure and function. Remember, the first part we were talking about the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Really the big difference to remember is the nucleus issue. Prokaryotic cells lack a nucleus. So if you're looking at a cell and you go, wow, no nucleus, just DNA in this central part, prokaryotic. If it has that nice little round brain center containing all of the DNA, that's a eukaryotic cell. Plants, animals, fungi, and the protistas all fit into the eukaryotic categories. So the nucleus houses the DNA. The DNA is the code of information for everything. It sends out instructions, sends it out to the rough endoplasmic reticulum and says, build me a protein. Sends out information over to the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and says, make me fats. So those proteins in those fats all become part of the cell. They could become the cell membrane, they could become parts of the cell membrane, they could become little structures, the organelles within the cell, etc. So cell organelles, these little structures inside of it, all work together to make sure the cell functions correctly. So let's say you've built a protein or you've built a fat, and now you need to ship it somewhere. Well, here comes the Golgi apparatus. So the Golgi apparatus is the packaging and shipping center for the cell. This is the cell's version of UPS, or the mail system, or DHL, or whoever you use if you're sending a package somewhere. So products come to the Golgi apparatus. They're put in these little bags called vesicles, carried to the Golgi apparatus. The Golgi repackages it and then ships it on out. It says, okay, this goes to this part of the cell, or this goes to that part of the cell, or maybe this goes out of the cell and needs to go to a different part of the body. So consider where testosterone is produced, yet that testosterone has to go to every single muscle cell in the human body. So it's got to get shipped, it's got to get sent out. That's what the Golgi does, packaging and shipping center. Now, once we've created products and we've shipped products and we've sent them around the cell or out of the cell, we have to clean up our garbage. And that's what the lysosome does. The lysosome is considered the garbage truck of the cell. We also want to consider it the police force of the cell. This structure, the lysosome, is what will take care of and protect the cell. So it'll cruise around the cell, moving around, bumping into things it doesn't like, and then it'll get rid of them. It'll scoop it up, destroy it, recycle it, break it down, basically eliminate wastes from the cell. As a police force, it acts as a defender of the cell. So the garbage truck version or side of things, oh, here's some cellular debris that's no longer needed, let's scoop it up and just dispose of it. The police force, let's defend your cell. So if a virus or bacteria or some kind of organism invades your cell, there are different diseases like malaria, where the organism that causes the disease actually goes inside of your cell. That's when the lysosome goes to work, and it tries to attack and destroy the invading organism inside the cell. So the lysosome performs a similar function, a function similar to what the white blood cells do, but the white blood cells do it at a full body level. The lysosome is protecting your individual cell. It's doing the same basic function at the cellular level. Okay, so everybody's got a job. All these structures work. Now there's a disease known as Tay-Sachs that we'll talk more about in genetics. If a child inherits this, unfortunately they're going to be dead before they're probably 4 or 5 years old. And the reason they die is their lysosomes are not working. They're on strike. They don't function. So this allows wastes and cellular debris to accumulate, which eventually leads to the death of the individual. So we know the problem is a faulty lysosome. Can we fix Tay-Sachs? The genetics, the DNA, does not tell the ribosome and the Golgi, or the ribosome and the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, how to create a functional garbage truck or a functional lysosome. So we need to change the DNA. That's what genetic engineering is all about. So we'll circle back to this. Don't forget these things. We're going to circle back to them. All right, so cleaning up the cell and protecting it's a pretty big job. So fortunately, the lysosome has a partner. It's called a peroxisome. Same basic concept, but the peroxisomes cleans up lipids and the peroxisome will clean up lipids and alcohols within the cell. So similar to the trash analogy, if you put out a bunch of leaves and branches, it's a different truck that comes by to scoop that stuff up versus what they're picking up when they're picking up your normal trash. Same basic principle, cleaning, protecting, keeping the cell healthy and safe and functional. Okay, so these structures go across all cells. Every cell, plant, animal, fungi, protista, etc., they all have these basic structures. They all have these key cellular structures. Now, the next one we want to look at here is the mitochondria. This structure is the key to power. Okay, so the mitochondria is the powerhouse for all producers and consumers. I don't care if you are plant, animal, fungi, protista, etc. You need power, you need energy, and that's what the mitochondria produces. The key is it will make energy in the form of there's my scribbling, ATP. That's what comes out of this guy. So we will come back to this structure big time, but it is the powerhouse. Producers, plants, algae, etc. Consumers, animals, fungi, etc. all have mitochondria to run power. A couple ingredients go in. We'll see different ingredients going in to the mitochondria, and then products come out. ATP, carbon dioxide, heat, water, etc. So we'll come back to this. But this is a key powerhouse structure. There is a disease known as a type of macular degeneration where the mitochondria in the cells of the eyes do not function correctly. So now you lose energy to your cells die. Cells die, they can't function. Cells die, tissues don't function. Tissues don't function, organs don't function, etc. You guys want to have more energy and a higher metabolic rate? Increase your mitochondria count. We'll talk more about that when we get into energy and nutrition and diet and food and all those topics down the road. All right, so now here's our very first plant-specific structure. All right, let me put a little symbol in here to indicate. I'm going to put a little star. Boom, and let's make that star green to say here's a plant-specific structure. Okay, chloroplast. This is a powerhouse for producers. Okay, so the chloroplast makes power for organisms we call producers. Plants, algae, some bacteria. Those guys all photosynthesize. So again, we'll talk about this later when we get into energy. Ingredients go in, things come out. But this is a powerhouse. If you can add these to your body, you don't need to eat nearly as much. You use sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, bring those things in. Produce ATP, produce sugar, produce oxygen on the output. Plant-specific in this example, though. Animals, currently we say animals do not have chloroplasts, but there is an animal that does. So now it gets into a weird, do we call them an animal, a plant, or this thing maybe we call it something new like a planimal, half and half. Okay? All right. So plant specific for our example here of cell structures. All right, the next one, chromoplasts. Pow, let's give that a green star. In this example, this comparison, plant specific. Chromoplasts are also powerhouses. These guys are known as the bags of fall colors. All right, so when you see reds and greens and yellows and oranges, those are the chromoplasts. They are capable of running photosynthesis just like the chloroplasts, but they just don't do it as well because they're using these green or these orange, red, yellow, etc. pigments called carotenoids. They're just not as efficient as chloroplasts, but hey, I'll take a backup energy source, and that's really what chromoplasts are, kind of a backup energy for the cell. Okay, so plants, no animals. We don't contain chromoplasts. And let's go another one, leucoplasts. Bow! Here's another plant structure. Now leucoplasts are just big bags of starch. This is how how plants will store their carbohydrates in the form of leucoplasts. All right, so baked potatoes, pasta, grain, etc. Leucoplasts. Okay, animals don't store carbohydrates this way. We store it as stuff called glycogen, but plants store it this way. So that's why you got a big baked potato. You zoom into that baked potato, and let me give you guys an outline. So here's the outline of the leucoplast right there. And then this little thing here, that's actually starch. That's energy. Here's another ball or bag of starch, and another, and another, and you get the point. There's a whole lot of them in here. The picture over here, they've actually stained the starch with Lugol's. That's why these look purple. Each of these things are a bag of starch. So lots and lots of energy. Plant structure though, or producer structure. Okay, let's do it again. Bow, bang, there's your plant structure. Central vacuole, big bag of water found within, excuse me, within plant cells. We lack these things. So the central vacuole is this big bag right here, filled with water. It's like a big giant water bed or water balloon here, filled with water. Tends to sit in the center of the plant cell, filling it up, giving it some rigidity and some kind of a structural support when we look at the big bag of water within the plant cell. Okay? So when you're looking at the cells over on the side here, this is, let me draw the, here's the cell wall of the plant. These green things here are all the chloroplasts. And then that big open space, that's actually the vacuole there. Hard to really see any kind of membrane because it's just this big clear bag of water. Okay, so key plant structures. Okay, all right. I need to back us up a little bit here on the slides, and let me come back to this one. Another key plant structure. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to this one. I got it labeled here. Another key plant structure I want you guys to remember is the cell wall. All right, plants have a cell wall, hard, rigid structural support. They will have a cell membrane, lies right beneath the cell wall, but the cell wall is made up of cellulose, and it's what gives a plant its rigidity and its structural support. Okay, so an important plant cell structure. All right, now that we've covered most of the overall structures and then a bunch of plant-specific structures, The next step is getting into the skeletal system of the individual cell. So we'll tackle that in our next lecture.